Teachers' unions in Panama discussed the agreements reached on education at the single dialogue table with a view of ending the strike sectors. Systematic violence in Colombia continues 1 week before the inauguration of the new administration. Also, several countries call for respect for international law after tensions between Serbia and Kosovo escalated after Kosovo forces blocked roads on the common borderline. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Teachers' unions in Panama discussed with bases the agreements reached on education at the single dialogue table with a view to ending the sector's strike. The teachers reportedly agreed with the Panamanian Ministry of Education the end of the strike and a gradual increase of 6% of the gross domestic product by the end of 2024. The associations of educators of Veragüense stated that the decision could guarantee the return to classes as from Tuesday, August the 2nd, with a restructured school year to conclude in December, and explained that the document must establish that no reprisals will be taken against the teachers, directors, supervisors, and other educational staff that participated in the strike. In Colombia, systematic violence continues. 1 week before the inauguration of the new administration, just this year, a total of 58 violence incidents have been reported. According to the Institute for Peace and Development in the Past, by its Spanish acronym, during this past weekend, 3 massacres were registered in the country. According to the report of the aforementioned non-governmental organization, 3 young people, including 2 minors, were found on Friday with bullet wounds at an abandoned urbanization known as Altos de las Minas in the municipality of La Jagua de Ibirico in the department of Cesar. In another incident, 3 young men lost their lives in the municipality of Cincelejo, Sucre, during a police raid following the murder of a patrol officer in the area. Meanwhile, this Sunday, 5 people were killed inside a house in the neighborhood of Ciudadela Grajales in the municipality of La Unión, Valle del Cauca. Colombia's Vice President-elect, Francia Márquez, continues her visit to Bolivia as part of a South American tour that took her to Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. Márquez attends on Monday the celebration of the Day of the Pachamama held in La Plaza Murillo in the city of La Paz, accompanied by the Vice President of Bolivia, David Choquehuanca. The Vice President-elect is expected to hold a meeting with the Vice President of Bolivia, and it is not ruled out that she will also meet with the nation's President, Luis Arce. Márquez arrives this Sunday in the Ciudad de La Paz, the city of La Paz, where she was received by Bolivian authorities and representatives of social organizations. This is the last stop of a tour of South America in which she held meetings with Brazilian presidential candidate Luis Inácio Lula da Silva and the presidents of Chile and Argentina, Gabriel Boric and Alberto Fernandez, respectively. And referring to Márquez's visit, former President Evo Morales Ayma expressed through his Twitter account, "Welcome to Bolivia, Sister Vice President of Colombia, Francia Márquez. The people, the poor, the vilified, and the historically marginalized who promoted here a new country with the hope of equality and racial justice. We salute you as a worthy leader of this cause." And the government of Argentina is undergoing an economic restructuring with the announcement of new measures and new ministerial appointees. Through Twitter, former Congress Whip Sergio Massa said he has appointed the new Secretary of Finance and the Undersecretary of Budget in charge of taxes as part of the restructuring measures announced. Massa said that this week he will be announcing the names of those chosen to be part of this team at the Department of National Economy. This comes after President Alberto Fernandez last Thursday's announcement of the merger of the Ministries of Economy, productive development, agriculture, livestock, and fishing, as well as the appointment of Sergio Massa as the new economy minister in order to provide an effective response to the current inflation crisis in the country. Thousands of women marched in Rio de Janeiro on Sunday, demanding more government support for marginalized black women. Many displayed traditional clothes and danced to music related to Brazil's African history while chanting and holding banners for the fight for rights and the dignity of black women. Next to Copacabana Beach, the march marked the 8th Black Women's March after a 2-year break because of the pandemic. It raised awareness of women issues just a few months before national elections where women voters are expected to play a key role in choosing the country's next president. According to the latest polls, Luis Inácio Lula da Silva leads President Jair Bolsonaro by double digits, especially among women.
The blacker we are, the more racism we have to endure. Not a day goes by without the black woman being discriminated against. Whether it be the most violent form of racism or a covert one, both hurt the same.
We'll take a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back. The Russian government held on Monday the departure of the first bulk carrier with Ukrainian grain from the port of Odessa. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov pointed out at a press conference that the departure of the ship is a positive development, as it is an opportunity to demonstrate the effectiveness of the mechanisms agreed upon at the negotiations in Istanbul. The spokesperson also expressed his hope that all the agreements reached will be complied with. Moscow also assured that it had signed a memorandum with the UN to contribute to the export of Russian fertilizers and agricultural products to the international markets. This departure comes after Turkey and Ukraine signed an agreement with the United Nations on July 22nd, which proposed to unblock the export of grain and fertilizers from Kiev in the midst of the current conflict.
Welcome first step, and we look forward to the implementation of the whole deal and resumption of Ukrainian exports to the customers all around the world where they need it, because the negative consequences of Russia's aggression against Ukraine and blockage of Ukrainian ports are affecting the most vulnerable people in Africa, in Asia, and in the Middle East.
Several countries call for the respect of international law in the face of the tensions between Serbia and Kosovo, increased after Kosovo forces blocked roads on the common dividing line. Greece's Foreign Ministry, Nikos Dendias, urged the parties in the conflict to comply with international detention in the region. For his part, the European Union's High Representative for Foreign Policy and Security, Joseph Borrell, called for dialogue to normalize relations between Kosovo and Serbia, describing it as an essential step for their path to integration into the bloc. Leaders of other countries, such as Italy and Russia, joined the calls, stressing the importance of respecting international law in order to establish and preserve the peace. Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov called for respecting the rights of the Serbian residents in Kosovo following Sunday's protests. The Russian official explained that the entry restrictions imposed by the Kosovo's authorities on vehicles with the Serbian license plates and the documents are absolutely unreasonable. The Kremlin stresses the importance of respecting international law for the establishment and preservation of peace. The Russian presidential press secretary was grateful that it was possible to avoid any worsening of the protest after the Kosovo authorities announced this July 31st a postponement of such restrictions. However, he warned that the situation was only postponed for a month, to which he specified the importance of continuing to show prudence on the part of all the actors. The World Health Organization spokesperson Margaret Harris warned of an unusually large outbreak of monkeypox worldwide, declaring a public health emergency of international concern as the virus transmission mode is still unidentified. Monkeypox is a rare viral disease that is usually transmitted through body fluids, respiratory droplets, and other contaminated materials. The disease usually results in fever, rash, and swollen lymph nodes. There have been sporadic outbreaks of monkeypox in the world since the 1970s, but the current outbreak is unusually catastrophic. The most sort of classical sign that indicates you got monkeypox are the little blisters on the skin. The blisters may be on the hands, the feet, and the face, as well as less noticeable parts such as the inside of the mouth or the genitals, which raises the risk of person-to-person transmission.
It usually starts with feeling tired, as often happens with any virus, a fever, muscle aches, really there's some what we call malaise, where you just feel terrible, you feel ill. Now that can be any kind of virus, but then it moves to having swelling of the lymph nodes, quite often around the neck and other parts of the body. And the most sort of classical sign that indicates you've got monkeypox are these little bubbles, little blisters on your skin.
And Beijing reiterates warnings to the U.S., saying a visit by Nancy Pelosi to Taiwan will have serious consequences. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian warned that the Asian giant will respond firmly to what it considers a provocation and that the U.S. will have to assume all the consequences arising from the possible visit. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi kicks off on Monday an Asia tour that has been shrouded in secrecy, following an escalation in tensions with China over Taiwan. Pelosi stopped first in Singapore, where Prime Minister Lee Hsien-loong urged her to strive for stable ties with Beijing. Her itinerary, her schedule, also includes Malaysia, South Korea, and Japan.
If House Speaker Pelosi goes to Taiwan, it will be a gross interference in China's internal affairs. It will seriously damage China's sovereignty and territorial integrity, will trample on the One China principle, seriously threaten the peace and stability of the Taiwan Strait, seriously undermine Sino-US relations, and will lead to a very serious situation and to very serious consequences.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he was outraged by the deaths of two men when peacekeepers opened fire at a border post with Uganda and the troubled Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo on Sunday. According to a statement read by the UN Secretary General's deputy spokesperson for Hak, Guterres stressed in the strongest terms the need to establish accountability for this kind of events, and he endorsed the detention of military personnel involved in this incident and an immediate inquiry into the events. In a video of the incident and the facts shared on social media, the men, one dressed as a police officer and the other as a Congolese soldier, are seen advancing towards the convoy stopped on the other side of the closed fence in Kazindi, in the territory of Beni on the border with Uganda. After a verbal exchange, the alleged peacekeepers are seen firing shots before opening the gate and crossing the post. Another 14 people are said to have been injured in the incident. And speaking during the closing day of the African National Congress Party's conference, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa highlighted the fight against corruption and the country's struggling economy. The South African head of state said all the measures proposed to grow and transform the economy rely on a fiscal policy that ensures the national debt is contained within sustainable limits. The conference also discussed policies needed to address the nation's challenges, including high levels of poverty, 35% of unemployment rate, the country's electricity crisis, and the rising cost of living. During the speech, President Ramaphosa thanked the delegates for their support for the steps the government was taking to tackle these issues.
All the measures proposed to grow and transform the economy rely on a fiscal policy that ensures that our national debt is contained within sustainable limits and that spending is reprioritized away from consumption towards investment. In this way, we can align our fiscal policy with our industrial policy, which should focus on rebuilding and broadening our industrial base.
On Sunday, Senegal voted in parliamentary elections. The opposition hopes will force a coalition with President Macky Sall and curb any intention he may have for a form a third term. Following stations opened at 8 a.m. local time and closed at 6 p.m. local time for the single round of voting in which some 7 million Senegalese were eligible to vote. Partial results are expected by Monday, with provisional overall figures to be given no later than Friday. By midday, turnout had reached 22%. Turnout at several polling stations appeared relatively low. The National Election Commission deployed 22,000 observers nationwide. The ballot will decide the 165 seats of the single-chamber parliament, currently controlled by the president's supporters, for the next 5 years. In Iraq, supporters of the Shiite leader Muqtada Sadr are occupying parliament for the second time in 3 days in Baghdad's heavily fortified Green Zone. Hundreds of supporters continue occupying the legislative seat in opposition to the prime minister candidacy of Mohammed al-Sudani, considering him close to the former head of government Nouri al-Maliki and part of the country's corruption. During the protests, security forces closed several roads in the capital and fired tear gas and water on demonstrators. According to the local news agency INA, at least 60 people were injured. In this context, Iraq's Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazimi called on all the country's political parties to start negotiations in order to put an end to the crisis. On Sunday, Portugal battled major forest fires as temperatures rose sharply this weekend. Around 400 firefighters were drafted to combat a blaze that broke out in the Mafra area, 40 kilometers, 25 miles north of Lisbon. Elsewhere, other major fire outbreaks rage in northern and central Portugal, requiring over 1,000 firefighters. Portugal's Civil Protection Authority recommends people living near the forest in the areas to host their gardens to try to slow the advance of the flames. Some resorts and retirement homes have been evacuated as a preventative measure. Portugal had been placed on alert over the weekend in the face of steep temperature rises to more than 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, and according to the Meteorological Institute, such temperatures may last until Thursday. At least 24 people were killed in Uganda due to floods and landslides caused by heavy rains in the east of the country. According to the Red Cross, hundreds of homes, as well as vehicles and the crops, were flooded and several roads in the affected districts had to be cut. Prime Minister Robina Nabaja visited the areas and the affected areas and said the executive is in contact with the Uganda Defense Forces and the police to send officials to the site and continue with the search and rescue operations. TeleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on the screen are in place since July 1st, a month ago. Quite soon, further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now, more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other farther away nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. So we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.